What my daughter-in-law did while my granddaughter fought for her life will make your blood boil. But what I did next? She never saw it coming. You have to see how this ends. On the 4th of July, my 13-year-old granddaughter Emma collapsed right in front of the fireworks display, and we rushed her to the emergency room. While I sat there terrified, not knowing if she'd make it, my daughter-in-law Sophia posted online, "Finally got rid of the little attention seeker. Best July 4th ever." That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. And when she came home 3 weeks later and saw what was waiting on that kitchen counter, she went absolutely insane. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love knowing how far these revenge stories reach. I was standing in my backyard in Cedar Falls, Iowa, the smell of barbecue ribs smoking on the grill filling the warm summer air. The sweet, tangy sauce I'd been basting them with all afternoon glistened in the sunlight like liquid amber. Beside me, Emma, my 13-year-old granddaughter, was carefully arranging red, white, and blue cupcakes on a star-shaped platter. "Grandma, these look amazing," she said, her voice bright with pride. Her blue eyes sparkled as she placed a tiny American flag on each one, her small hands working with such care. I smiled, brushing a strand of her honey blonde hair behind her ear, feeling warmth spread through my chest. For me, Emma wasn't just my granddaughter. She was my entire world. The only light I had left since my husband William passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack. The back gate creaked open, and guests started arriving, carrying coolers, folding chairs, and covered dishes. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, came in first, her famous potato salad balanced in her arms. "Margaret, your yard looks just beautiful," she called out, and I felt a rush of pride. I'd spent all week stringing up lights, setting up tables, and making sure everything was perfect. My brother David arrived with his wife, both of them laughing about something, their arms loaded with sparklers for the kids. The smell of grilled corn mixed with the smoky ribs, and I could hear the classic country music playing from the speakers William had installed years ago. It was the 4th of July, a day for family, for celebration, for freedom. I wanted everything to be perfect, especially for Emma, so she could feel the love and joy she deserved. But then the gate swung open again, and I felt my stomach tighten just a bit. My son Michael walked in with his wife Sophia right behind him. They were late as usual. Sophia stood out in her designer white sundress, the kind you'd wear to a fancy garden party in the Hamptons, not a backyard barbecue in Iowa. She had her phone in one hand already, taking selfies before she'd even said hello to anyone. She walked past me, gave me a quick side hug that barely touched, her lips forming a practiced smile. "Hi, Margaret," she said in that light, breezy voice, then immediately headed toward the younger crowd near the pool, people I barely knew who Michael had invited. Michael kissed my cheek quickly. "Everything looks great, Mom," he said, but his eyes were already following Sophia. I nodded and smiled, even though something uncomfortable squeezed in my chest. I watched him walk away and wondered when exactly this distance had opened up between us. When had my son stopped really seeing me? I turned my attention back to Emma, and my heart sank. She was shyly approaching Sophia, carefully holding one of the special cupcakes she'd decorated herself. "The one with extra frosting and the biggest flag. Aunt Sophia," Emma said softly, her voice full of hope. "I made this one special for you." Sophia glanced at the cupcake, then down at her pristine white dress, then back at Emma. "Oh, sweetie, I'm trying to stay away from carbs," she said with a dismissive wave. "But thanks." She immediately turned back to her phone, scrolling through something, leaving Emma standing there alone, the cupcake trembling slightly in her small hands. I saw Emma's shoulders slump, watched the light dim in her eyes like someone had blown out a candle. I wanted to march over there, take her in my arms, tell her Sophia's rudeness had nothing to do with her worth. But I held back. I didn't want to make things worse or cause a scene. Instead, I walked over casually, put my arm around Emma's shoulder and whispered, "Come help me bring out the coleslaw, honey." As the afternoon went on, everyone gathered around the long picnic tables I'd set up. The food was spread out like a feast, the barbecue ribs falling off the bone, corn on the cob dripping with butter, watermelon slices, my homemade baked beans, and about a dozen other dishes people had brought. Everyone was laughing, talking, raising their glasses of sweet tea and lemonade. Sophia, as always, became the center of attention. She told story after story, her voice rising above everyone else's, making Michael's work friends laugh at her jokes. I looked around the table, trying to enjoy the moment, trying to soak in the joy of the holiday, but my eyes kept drifting to Emma. She sat quietly at the far end of the table, barely touching her food. She pushed a piece of rib around on her plate, pretending to eat but not really taking a bite. Her face looked pale, and those beautiful blue eyes that usually sparkled now seemed dull and distant. I felt worry rising in my chest, but I tried to calm myself. Maybe she's just tired from the heat, I thought. Maybe she's just overwhelmed by all the people. Then Emma gently tugged on my sleeve. She leaned close and whispered so quietly I had to strain to hear her. "Grandma, I don't feel good. My chest feels weird." My heart stopped for a second. I put my hand on her forehead. She felt clammy, not feverish, but something was wrong. "What do you mean, honey? What kind of weird?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even though panic was starting to build inside me. Before Emma could answer, a sharp, loud laugh cut through the air. It was Sophia. She was staring right at us, her perfectly lipsticked mouth curved into a mocking smile. "Oh, here we go again," Sophia announced loudly enough for half the table to hear. "Emma's playing sick to get attention. Margaret, you really need to stop babying her so much. She does this at every single family event." The conversation around the table stuttered to a halt. People looked uncomfortable. Some laughed awkwardly, trying to ease the tension. Michael, sitting right next to Sophia, shifted in his seat. "Soph, come on, that's not cool," he muttered weakly, but his voice had no strength. He didn't stand up for his daughter. He didn't stop his wife. I looked at Emma. Her small body was trembling. Her head dropped down, staring at her untouched plate. Her hands clenched into fists under the table. I could see her eyes turning red, but she wasn't crying. She was just enduring it, suffering in silence, trying not to make things worse. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like someone was twisting a knife. I wanted to scream at Sophia right there in front of everyone. I wanted to defend Emma with every ounce of strength I had, but I held back, terrified that saying something would only humiliate Emma more. Instead, I reached under the table and took Emma's hand, squeezing it gently. It was a silent promise. "I'm here. I won't leave you alone." Michael, probably sensing how uncomfortable everyone felt, suddenly jumped up and turned up the music. Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA blasted from the speakers, and people started talking again, pretending everything was fine. The moment passed, swept under the rug like it never happened. I stood up, planning to take Emma inside to lie down, to check on her properly, to get her away from Sophia's cruelty. But just as I put my hand on her shoulder, everything fell apart. Emma gasped, a strange, choking sound. Her eyes went wide with terror, and she started clawing at her throat. Then her lips started turning blue. "Emma!" I screamed, my voice cracking with panic. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the grass, her body convulsing, gasping for air that wouldn't come. The platter of cupcakes crashed to the ground, red and blue frosting smearing across the grass like paint. Everyone jumped up at once. Chairs scraped. People shouted. Michael ran toward us, dropping to his knees beside his daughter. "Emma, Emma, breathe! What's happening?" I knelt beside her, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold her. Her face was turning a terrible shade of purple. She was trying to breathe, her chest heaving, but nothing was working. I didn't know what to do. Terror gripped me so tight I couldn't think straight. My brother David, always calm in a crisis, grabbed his phone and dialed 911. "We need an ambulance now," he shouted into the phone. "A 13-year-old girl, she can't breathe, her lips are blue, she's having some kind of reaction." Everything became a blur of motion and sound. Someone, I think it was Mrs. Patterson, started doing something she remembered from a first aid class, tilting Emma's head back. Michael was crying, holding his daughter's hand, begging her to hold on. And then, in the middle of all that chaos, I heard Sophia's voice. She was standing several feet back, arms crossed, watching the scene with an annoyed expression. She sighed dramatically and said to one of her friends, loud enough for several people to hear, I told you guys she always does this. She just wants to be the center of attention. Those words hit me like a physical blow. I looked up at her, saw her cold, indifferent eyes, and felt something break inside me. My granddaughter was literally dying on the grass, and this woman thought it was an act. The ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The paramedics burst through the gate carrying equipment, moving fast and efficient. They immediately gave Emma a shot of something, I later learned it was epinephrine, and put an oxygen mask on her face. "Looks like anaphylactic shock," one paramedic said. "Severe allergic reaction. Has she eaten anything unusual?" I don't know," I stammered, my mind racing. "We had the same food we always have." They loaded Emma onto a stretcher, moving quickly. "We need to get her to the hospital now," the female paramedic said. "Family can ride with us." "I'm coming," I said immediately, grabbing my purse from the patio table. Michael started to follow, but Sophia grabbed his arm. "Michael, we can drive ourselves," she said. "I'm not riding in an ambulance." I didn't wait to hear his response. I climbed into the ambulance, sat beside Emma, and took her hand as the doors slammed shut. Through the small window, I saw my backyard full of people standing frozen. The party completely forgotten, the American flags still waving cheerfully in the breeze like nothing had happened. Inside the ambulance, the world narrowed to just Emma and me. The paramedic was doing things I couldn't follow, checking monitors, adjusting the oxygen. Emma's eyes were half open now, scared and confused. "I'm here, baby," I whispered, squeezing her hand. "You're gonna be okay. Grandma's right here." The ambulance raced through the streets of Cedar Falls, the sirens screaming. I watched the familiar buildings blur past. The old courthouse, the Main Street shops, the park where William used to take Emma to feed the ducks. Every bump in the road felt like it lasted forever. I thought about William then, about how he used to call Emma his little firecracker because she was born on July 3rd, about how he'd made me promise right before he died to always take care of her no matter what. I squeezed Emma's cold hand tighter and made that promise again silently. The hospital doors flew open, and suddenly we were in a rush of bright, fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. Nurses in scrubs surrounded the stretcher, wheeling Emma away fast, calling out medical terms I didn't understand. "Wait, can I stay with her?" I called out, trying to follow. A nurse gently stopped me. "You need to wait here, ma'am. The doctors need room to work. We'll update you as soon as we can." And just like that, a door swung shut between us. I stood there in the hallway, completely alone, staring at that closed door, feeling like the entire world had just collapsed. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been seconds or minutes. Everything felt frozen. Finally, my legs started working again, and I made my way to the waiting room. The plastic chairs were cold and uncomfortable. The TV on the wall was playing some news about 4th of July celebrations around the country, people laughing and waving flags. It felt like a cruel joke. I sat down, clasped my hands together, and prayed. I prayed harder than I'd prayed since the night William died. I couldn't lose Emma. I couldn't. She was all I had left. About 20 minutes later, Michael rushed in, his face pale and panicked. "Mom, where is she?" "What did the doctors say?" "They took her back," I said, my voice hollow. "They haven't told me anything yet." He sank into the chair next to me, running his hands through his hair. Oh God," he kept muttering. Sophia walked in a few minutes later, much more slowly. She was on her phone texting someone. When she finally looked up, she seemed annoyed rather than worried. "This is taking forever," she complained. "Are we just supposed to sit here?" I couldn't even look at her. I stared at the wall, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Finally, a doctor came out, a young woman with kind eyes and exhaustion written on her face. "Family of Emma Johnson?" We all stood up at once. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Emma had a severe anaphylactic reaction," the doctor said. "We believe it was triggered by nuts, possibly in a sauce or frosting. Her airway was closing and her blood pressure dropped dangerously low. But we got the epinephrine in time, and she's stabilized now. She's going to be okay." The relief hit me so hard I almost fell. Michael grabbed the chair for support, tears streaming down his face. "Oh, thank God," he gasped. "Thank God. Can we see her?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Soon," the doctor said. We're moving her to a room now. She'll need to stay overnight for observation, but she's out of danger." The doctor walked away, and I sank back into my chair, feeling like every bone in my body had turned to water. Emma was okay. She was going to be okay. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands, thinking I should text my brother David to let everyone know. But when I unlocked it, I saw a notification from Facebook. Someone had tagged me in a post. My stomach dropped even before I opened it. It was Sophia's account. Posted just 12 minutes ago. There was a selfie of her in the hospital parking lot, the sunset behind her making her look radiant. She was smiling, doing a peace sign. The caption read, "Finally got rid of the little attention seeker. Best July 4th ever. Nothing's gonna ruin my holiday vibes. Drama-free, 4th of July. Living my best life." I stared at the screen, reading it over and over, unable to process what I was seeing. While Emma had been fighting for her life, while we'd all been terrified she might die, Sophia had been in the parking lot taking selfies and celebrating getting rid of her. My hands started shaking, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from pure cold rage. I scrolled down to the comments. Her friends were already responding. Jessica M. "OMG, yes girl. You deserve a drama-free day." Brad K. "Ha ha ha, finally some peace and quiet, right?" Vanessa L. "About time. Enjoy your night, babe." Not one person asked if Emma was okay. Not one person showed any concern for a 13-year-old child who'd just been rushed to the hospital. I felt something shift inside me. Something cold and hard settling into place. I took screenshots of everything, the post, every single comment, every reaction. I saved them all to my photos and emailed them to myself. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. But I knew, sitting there in that cold hospital waiting room with my granddaughter fighting for breath in a room down the hall, that I would never, ever let Sophia hurt Emma again. Michael came back from the bathroom, his eyes red. "Mom, they said we can see her in about 10 minutes. I nodded, slipping my phone back into my purse. I didn't show him what I'd found, not yet. Michael was too weak when it came to Sophia. I'd learned that a long time ago. If I wanted to protect Emma, I'd have to do it myself. A nurse came to get us, and we followed her down the hallway. Emma was in a small room propped up on pillows, an IV in her arm, oxygen tubes in her nose. But her eyes were open, and when she saw me, she tried to smile. "Grandma," she whispered, her voice raspy. I rushed to her side, taking her hand gently. "I'm here, sweetheart." "I'm right here." Michael stood on the other side, crying silently, holding Emma's other hand. "I'm so sorry, baby girl," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry." Sophia stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, looking at her phone. She didn't approach the bed. She didn't ask Emma how she was feeling. She just stood there, waiting for this to be over, and in that moment, I made a decision. A decision that would change everything. Emma stayed in the hospital for 3 days. 3 days where I barely left her side, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair next to her bed, holding her hand through every nightmare, every time she woke up scared and confused. Michael visited every day after work, but he never stayed long. He'd sit for maybe an hour, make awkward small talk, then say he had to get home. Sophia came exactly once, on the second day, stayed for maybe 15 minutes, spent most of it scrolling through her phone, and left saying she had a headache. During those long, quiet hours while Emma slept, I had a lot of time to think, a lot of time to remember, and the memories came flooding back, one after another, like a dam had finally broken. I remembered the very first day Sophia moved into Michael's house. Emma had been only 10 years old, and she'd spent the entire morning in her room making something special. When Sophia's moving truck pulled up, Emma had run downstairs carrying a handmade welcome sign she'd decorated with glitter and stickers. It said, "Welcome home, Aunt Sophia," with little hearts drawn around the edges. Emma had been so nervous, so hopeful. She'd stood on the front porch, holding that sign, her eyes shining with excitement at the idea of having a new mom figure in her life. Her real mother, Caroline, had died when Emma was only 5. Cancer took her fast and cruel. Sophia had stepped out of her BMW, wearing designer sunglasses and a perfectly pressed outfit. She'd glanced at the sign Emma was holding so proudly and said, "Oh, that's cute. You can just put it somewhere inside, I guess." Then she'd immediately started directing the movers, telling them to be careful with her things. Emma had lowered the sign slowly, the smile fading from her face. She'd looked up at me. I'd been standing in the doorway, and I'd seen the first crack of disappointment in her eyes. I'd smiled at her encouragingly and hung that sign in the kitchen myself. It stayed there for about a week before Sophia took it down, saying it clashed with the aesthetic she was going for. Then I remembered Emma's 11th birthday. I'd thrown her a party at my house because Michael and Sophia said they were too busy with renovations. Emma had invited 8 friends from school, and we'd had the best time. I'd made a homemade ice cream cake. We'd played games in the backyard, and the girls had done karaoke until they were hoarse. Sophia and Michael had shown up 2 hours late, right when we were about to cut the cake. Sophia had walked in carrying a small gift bag, set it on the table without ceremony, and then spent the rest of the party on the phone with her contractor, talking loudly about backsplash tiles while the kids tried to sing happy birthday. When Emma opened Sophia's gift later, it was a generic gift card to Target. No note, no personal touch, just a $20 card that looked like something you'd grab last minute at a grocery store checkout. Emma had smiled and said thank you, but I saw her carefully tuck away the handmade cards her friends had given her, the ones with inside jokes and hearts and BFF, written in sparkly gel pen, and put them in her special memory box. Sophia's gift card sat unused in a drawer for months. Another memory surfaced, sharper and more painful. It was last Christmas, about 7 months ago. Michael had invited me to their house for dinner, a rare occasion, since Sophia usually preferred to keep family events small and intimate, which apparently meant just her and Michael. When I'd arrived, I'd immediately noticed that something was different. The house had been redecorated completely. The warm, cozy living room that Caroline had designed, with family photos on the walls and Emma's artwork framed and displayed, was gone. Everything was now stark white and minimalist, like something out of a magazine, cold, impersonal. "Wow, you've really changed things," I'd said, trying to sound positive. "Finally," Sophia had said, adjusting a modern abstract painting on the wall. "This house was stuck in the past. Time to move forward, you know?" I'd walked around looking for the photos that used to be there. The picture of Caroline holding baby Emma in the hospital. The photo of Michael and Caroline on their wedding day. Emma's school pictures from every grade. All gone. Where did the family photos go? I'd asked, my voice tight. Sophia had waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, I packed those up. They were making the space feel cluttered. Emma has them in her room if she wants to look at them." But when I'd gone upstairs to say hi to Emma later, I'd found her sitting on her bed, surrounded by framed photos, crying silently. She'd been holding the picture of her mother, her small hands trembling. "Grandma," she'd whispered when she saw me, "why doesn't Aunt Sophia want my mom's pictures up? Did my mom do something wrong?" My heart had shattered into 1,000 pieces. I'd sat down next to her, pulled her into my arms and said, "No, baby. Your mom was perfect, and she loved you more than anything in the whole world. Don't you ever forget that." I'd wanted to march downstairs and scream at Sophia, but I hadn't. I'd stayed quiet, telling myself it was Sophia's house. She had the right to decorate how she wanted, that I shouldn't interfere, that keeping the peace was more important than making waves. Now, sitting in that hospital room, watching Emma sleep with machines beeping softly around her, I realized how wrong I'd been. How much I'd failed this precious child by staying silent. The memories kept coming. I remembered the time Emma had gotten straight A's on her report card and come home so proud, showing it to Sophia. Sophia had barely glanced at it and said, "Good, that's what you're supposed to do." No celebration. No pride. Just nothing. I remembered Emma's middle school choir concert, where she'd had a small solo. Michael had to work late, and Sophia had said she'd take Emma, but at the last minute, Sophia had claimed she felt sick and asked if I could take her instead. When we'd gotten to the school, I'd seen Sophia's Instagram story. She was at a wine bar downtown with friends, laughing and holding up a cocktail. "Self-care Sunday," the caption had read. Emma had seen it too. I'd watched her face fall when she'd checked her phone before going on stage. but she'd still gotten up there and sung her heart out, her voice clear and beautiful. Looking out into the audience where I sat clapping and cheering, while her father's seat and her stepmother's seat remained empty. On the third day, a doctor came in, a different one this time, an older allergist named Dr. Chen. She explained to us that Emma had developed a severe nut allergy, something that could happen even if she'd eaten nuts before without problems. "This is serious," Dr. Chen said firmly, looking at both Michael and me. "Emma needs to carry an EpiPen everywhere. You need to read labels on everything. Schools need to be notified. This isn't something to take lightly. The next reaction could be even worse if she's exposed again." Michael nodded seriously, taking notes on his phone. "I memorized every word. And I have to ask," Dr. Chen said carefully, "was there any delay in calling 911? Because Emma's reaction was very advanced by the time she got here. A few more minutes and she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Someone said she was faking it," I said quietly, my voice hard. "So we didn't react as fast as we should have." Dr. Chen's expression darkened. "You should never assume a child is faking an allergic reaction. The symptoms are very clear: difficulty breathing, facial swelling, discoloration. This isn't something you can fake." Michael looked down at his hands, shame written all over his face. He knew exactly who Dr. Chen was talking about, even though I hadn't said Sophia's name. When Emma was finally discharged, Michael drove us back to my house, not his. "I think it's better if Emma stays with you for a while, Mom," he said quietly. "Just until she's fully recovered. You're better at this stuff anyway." I didn't argue. I was relieved, actually. The thought of Emma going back to that cold, white house with Sophia made my skin crawl. Michael carried Emma's small overnight bag inside, kissed her on the forehead, and left. He didn't say when he'd be back. He didn't make plans to visit. He just left. Emma and I settled into a quiet routine. I made her favorite foods: chicken noodle soup from scratch, grilled cheese sandwiches with tomato, my special mac and cheese with the crispy breadcrumb topping. We watched old movies together: The Princess Bride, E.T., all the classics that William and I used to watch with her when she was little. Slowly, color came back to Emma's cheeks. Her laugh returned. At night, I'd read to her from the same books I used to read to Michael when he was a boy. Where the Red Fern Grows, Charlotte's Web, stories about loyalty and love and never giving up. The house felt peaceful, like it could finally breathe. Like we both could finally breathe, but I couldn't stop thinking about that post. About Sophia's cruelty. About how close I'd come to losing Emma because someone had convinced everyone she was faking it. One morning, about a week after Emma came home, I made an excuse about needing to run errands. I asked Mrs. Patterson next door if she could sit with Emma for a few hours, and I drove downtown to see my best friend, Janet Morrison. Janet owned The Sweet Spot, a little bakery on Main Street that had been there for 30 years. She'd been my closest friend since high school, back when we were both on the volleyball team and thought we'd conquer the world together. She knew me better than anyone, maybe even better than William had. The bell above the door chimed when I walked in, and the smell of fresh-baked cinnamon rolls surrounded me like a hug. Janet looked up from behind the counter, took one look at my face and said, "Back room, now, I'll bring coffee." 5 minutes later, we were sitting in her small office, surrounded by 50-pound bags of flour and industrial-sized containers of vanilla extract. Janet set down 2 steaming mugs of coffee and a plate of her famous blueberry scones. "Talk," she said simply, and I did. I told her everything. The whole story poured out of me: Emma's collapse, the hospital, Sophia's post, all the years of small cruelties I'd witnessed and stayed silent about. By the time I finished, I was crying, and Janet was holding my hand across the desk, her eyes blazing with anger. "That woman is a monster," Janet said flatly, "and Michael's a coward for not protecting his own daughter." I nodded, wiping my eyes with a napkin. "I don't know what to do, Janet. I can't send Emma back there." "I can't." Janet was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she said slowly, "Margaret, do you remember William's will?" I looked up confused. "What about it? Didn't William leave the house to Emma? Not to Michael, but directly to Emma?" My heart stopped. The memory came flooding back. William, sitting at our dining room table about a year before he died, going over paperwork with our lawyer. He'd taken my hand and said, "I want to make sure Emma always has a home, Maggie. No matter what happens. You'll make sure of that for me, right?" "Oh my God," I whispered. "The house. The house is Emma's." Janet nodded, her eyes sharp. "And if the house is Emma's and you're her legal guardian, then Sophia has no legal right to be there," I finished, my mind racing. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Emma was watching TV in the living room when I got back, looking happy and comfortable, a blanket tucked around her. I kissed the top of her head and went straight to the bedroom. William's old filing cabinet was in the closet, exactly where it had always been. I opened the bottom drawer, the one where he'd kept all the important documents, and started going through folders. Birth certificates, our marriage license, the deed to the house, insurance policies, and then, in a folder marked estate planning, I found it. William's last will and testament, dated March 15th, 5 years ago. I sat on the edge of the bed and read through it, my hands trembling. There it was, clear as day. "I hereby bequeath my property, located at 427 Maple Street, Cedar Falls, Iowa, to my granddaughter, Emma Rose Johnson. My wife, Margaret Ellen Johnson, shall serve as trustee and guardian of said property until Emma reaches the age of 18, at which point full ownership shall transfer to her." The house didn't belong to Michael. It never had. William had skipped a generation, leaving it directly to Emma, with me as the protector until she was old enough. I read the clause again and again, tears streaming down my face. This was William speaking to me from beyond the grave, reminding me that he'd always put Emma first, that he'd trusted me to do the same. I thought about Sophia living in that house, the house that actually belonged to Emma. I thought about her erasing Caroline's memory, treating Emma like a burden, posting cruel things online while Emma fought for her life, and I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I called James Peterson, the lawyer who'd helped William draft his will. James was semi-retired now, but he'd been a good friend to William, and I knew I could trust him. "Margaret," he said warmly when his secretary put me through. "It's been too long. How are you holding up?" "I need your help, James," I said. "It's about William's will, and my granddaughter." "Come by this afternoon," he said immediately. 2 o'clock? I was there at 1:55, sitting in the small waiting room of his office, clutching a folder containing the will and printed copies of Sophia's post and all the comments. I'd printed everything in color so you could see every detail. Sophia's smiling face, the timestamp showing it was posted while Emma was in the ER. Every cruel word. James came out to greet me himself, his silver hair neatly combed, wearing the same kind of sweater vest he'd worn for as long as I'd known him. He gave me a warm hug and led me back to his office, which smelled like old books and lemon furniture polish. "Now," he said, settling into his chair behind the desk, "tell me what's going on." I laid it all out for him, just like I had for Janet, but this time I was calmer, more focused. I showed him the will. I showed him the posts. I explained how Sophia had been treating Emma for 3 years and how it had finally escalated to this. James read through everything carefully, his expression growing darker with each page. When he got to Sophia's post, I saw his jaw clench. He took off his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes. "This is unconscionable," he said quietly. "That poor child. Can I do anything, James? Legally, I mean." He looked at me seriously. "Margaret, according to this will, you are the legal guardian and trustee of the property where Michael and Sophia currently live. That property belongs to Emma, not to them. As the trustee, you have every right to determine who lives there. So I could ask them to leave?" "You could do more than ask," James said. "You could legally evict anyone who doesn't have your permission to be there. Michael is Emma's father, so he has some rights as a parent. But Sophia?" He shook his head. "She has no legal claim to that house whatsoever. She's essentially a guest who's overstayed her welcome." My heart was pounding. "How would that work?" James pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "We'd draft a formal notice citing your rights as trustee. We'd give her 30 days to vacate the premises, as required by Iowa law. If she refuses, we can begin formal eviction proceedings. And Michael? That's more complicated," James admitted. "He's Emma's father, so he has parental rights, but..." He looked at me carefully. If you have custody of Emma and can demonstrate that it's in her best interest to remain with you, then Michael's claim to the house weakens considerably, especially since the house was never left to him in the first place. I need to think about this, I said, even though I already knew what I was going to do. James nodded. Take your time. But Margaret... He leaned forward, his eyes kind but serious. That social media post could be considered evidence of a harmful environment for Emma. If you ever needed to pursue custody, this could be very valuable. I left his office with a draft of the eviction notice in my folder and a strange sense of calm. I'd spent 3 years trying to keep the peace, trying to make things work, trying to convince myself that Sophia would eventually warm up to Emma. But Emma had almost died, and Sophia had celebrated. There was no coming back from that. I spent the next week preparing. I made copies of everything: the will, the eviction notice, the social media posts, medical records from Emma's hospital stay. I put it all in a safe deposit box at the bank, just in case. Emma was getting stronger every day. She'd gone back to school, carrying her new EpiPen in a special case, wearing a medical alert bracelet. Her friends had made her welcome back cards, and she'd stuck them all over her bedroom wall. "Grandma," she said one evening while we were making cookies together, "can I stay here with you?" "Like forever?" My heart swelled and broke at the same time. "Do you want to, honey?" She nodded, not looking at me, focusing hard on rolling the dough. "I like it here. It feels safe. And you make me feel like I matter." I set down my rolling pin, went around the counter, and wrapped her in my arms. "You matter more than anything in this whole world, Emma Rose. Don't you ever forget that." That night, after Emma went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with the eviction notice in front of me. I thought about what this would do to my relationship with Michael. I thought about the fight that was coming. But then I thought about Emma's face when Sophia rejected her cupcake. Emma crying over her mother's photos. Emma turning blue and gasping for air while Sophia called her an attention seeker. I picked up a pen and signed the notice. Then I called James and told him to make it official. The papers were served 3 days later. A process server went to Michael's house, Emma's house, I corrected myself, and handed Sophia the official eviction notice requiring her to vacate within 30 days. My phone rang 17 minutes later. It was Michael, and he was shouting so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" "I did what your father asked me to do," I said calmly. "I'm protecting Emma's inheritance. You can't just kick my wife out of our house." "It's not your house, Michael." "It never was. It's Emma's house. Your father made sure of that. This is insane." "Sophia is hysterical. How could you do this to us?" "How could I?" My voice rose despite my best efforts to stay calm. "Michael, your daughter almost died. And while she was in the hospital, your wife posted online that she was glad to be rid of her. How could you allow that?" There was silence on the other end. Sophia says that was taken out of context," Michael said weakly. "Really? What context makes it okay to celebrate your stepdaughter's medical emergency?" More silence. "Mom, please," Michael said, and now he sounded desperate instead of angry. "Please don't do this. We can work it out. Sophia will apologize." "It's too late for apologies, Michael. The papers are filed. Sophia has 30 days. And what about me? Are you kicking me out too?" I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "That's up to you, son. You're Emma's father, and you have a right to a relationship with her. But you need to decide who you're going to protect, your wife or your daughter. Because right now, you can't have both." I hung up before he could respond. The next 72 hours were a nightmare. It started with Sophia's mother, Patricia, calling me and screaming into the phone about how I was a bitter old woman who couldn't stand to see her son happy. I hung up on her mid-sentence. Then came the text messages from relatives I barely knew, people on Michael's side of the family, telling me I was tearing the family apart, that I should be ashamed, that William would be disappointed in me. I blocked every single one of them. But the worst part? The absolute worst part came on the 4th day after the eviction notice was served. I was making Emma breakfast when my phone started blowing up with notifications. Facebook, Instagram, even people texting me links. My hands started shaking before I even opened the first one. Sophia had posted again. This time it was a long, emotional essay with a photo of her sitting on Michael's couch, looking devastated, her eyes red like she'd been crying. She was wearing a simple gray sweater, looking vulnerable and sad, so different from her usual glamorous selfies. The post read, "I never thought I'd have to share this publicly, but I need to speak my truth. For 3 years, I've tried my absolute best to be a good mother to my stepdaughter, Emma. I've loved her like my own, sacrificed my own needs, tried to give her the stability she deserves after losing her mom so young. But my mother-in-law has never accepted me. She's been jealous from day one that her son found happiness again. She's turned Emma against me, spoiled her to the point where the child thinks she can fake illnesses to get attention and manipulate everyone around her. Now Margaret has used her late husband's will, which she probably manipulated him into writing, to evict me from my own home. The home I've lived in for 3 years. The home I've decorated, maintained, poured my heart into. I'm heartbroken. I just wanted to build a family. I guess that was too much to ask. Heartbroken, toxic in-laws. No good deed goes unpunished." I stared at the screen, watching the reactions pour in. Within an hour, the post had 500 likes, 200 shares, and hundreds of comments. Patricia, Sophia's mom. "Stay strong, baby girl. Margaret is a vicious, cruel woman. We're praying for you." Sophia's friend Jessica. "OMG, I can't believe she's doing this to you. You've been nothing but kind to that child." Someone named Brad. "Toxic mother-in-laws are the worst. You deserve so much better, Sophia." Michael's cousin Lauren. "Margaret, this is shameful. Your own son? How could you?" On and on it went. Person after person taking Sophia's side, calling me evil, jealous, manipulative. Nobody asked for my side of the story. Nobody questioned Sophia's version of events. They just believed her because she knew how to tell a story, how to make herself look like the victim. I felt sick to my stomach. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Emma walked into the kitchen and saw my face. "Grandma? What's wrong?" I quickly locked my phone. "Nothing, sweetie. Just some spam messages. You want chocolate chips in your pancakes?" But Emma wasn't stupid. She was 13, and she knew how to read faces. She looked worried for the rest of breakfast, and I could see her sneaking glances at me when she thought I wasn't looking. By midday, the pressure was unbearable. I'd gotten phone calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all telling me what a terrible person I was. Mrs. Patterson next door had even asked me, very carefully, if there was maybe a misunderstanding that could be worked out. I felt completely alone, isolated, like the whole world had turned against me. That's when Janet showed up at my door, not even bothering to knock, just walking right in like she owned the place. She found me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, my phone face down because I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. "Okay," Janet said, pulling out a chair and sitting across from me. "Enough is enough. You have the truth, Margaret. You have proof. Why are you letting her win?" "Because no one will believe me," I said, my voice hollow. "They all think I'm this evil mother-in-law who can't let go." Janet grabbed my phone before I could stop her, unlocked it. She knew my passcode from the 1,000 times I'd asked her to check messages while my hands were covered in flour or dish soap, and pulled up Sophia's post. She read it, her expression getting darker and darker. Then she set the phone down and looked at me with fierce eyes. "Margaret, William trusted you to protect Emma. Right now, you're letting some manipulative woman rewrite history. You think Emma won't see all this someday? You think she won't wonder why you didn't fight for her?" Her words hit me like cold water. She was right. I'd been so focused on the pain of being attacked that I'd forgotten what I was fighting for. This wasn't about me. It was about Emma. "What do I do?" I whispered. Janet smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. It was a warrior's smile. "You tell the truth, all of it." That night, after Emma went to bed, I sat down at my laptop. My heart was pounding, my palms were sweaty, but my mind was crystal clear. I opened Facebook and started typing. I didn't rush. I took my time, choosing every word carefully. I didn't want to air family business publicly. But since my daughter-in-law has chosen to share her version of events, I feel I must share the truth. 3 weeks ago, my 13-year-old granddaughter Emma collapsed at our 4th of July celebration. She couldn't breathe. Her lips turned blue. She was having a severe allergic reaction, and we called 911 immediately. Except we didn't call immediately, because someone convinced us Emma was faking it for attention. Someone told us she was being dramatic. Someone made us hesitate. That someone was my daughter-in-law, Sophia. By the time the ambulance arrived, Emma was in anaphylactic shock. The doctors told us that if we'd waited even a few minutes longer, she might have died. While my son and I sat in the hospital waiting room, terrified, not knowing if Emma would survive, Sophia posted this. I attached the screenshot of Sophia's original post, the one she'd deleted but that I'd saved. Finally got rid of the little attention seeker. Best July 4th ever. I continued typing. As for the house, Sophia is correct that I asked her to leave. But what she didn't mention is that the house doesn't belong to me or my son. It belongs to Emma. My late husband, William, left it directly to his granddaughter in his will, with me as trustee. I am simply fulfilling my duty to protect Emma's inheritance. I have tried for 3 years to keep the peace. I've stayed silent while Sophia erased Emma's mother's memory from their home. I've said nothing while she rejected Emma's attempts to bond. I've bitten my tongue through countless small cruelties, but I will not stay silent while someone celebrates my granddaughter's medical emergency. I will not allow someone who thinks a child nearly dying is drama-free to live in that child's home. Emma almost died. And Sophia was happy about it. That is the truth. Judge it however you want. I attached 3 more images, another screenshot showing the cruel comments from Sophia's friends, a photo of the relevant page from William's will with Emma's name highlighted, and finally, a picture from the hospital, not of Emma suffering, but of her medical bracelet with severe nut allergy printed in red letters. I read through the post one more time. Then I tagged Sophia, Patricia, and everyone who'd commented on Sophia's post defending her. My finger hovered over the post button for a long moment. Once I did this, there was no taking it back. The war would be fully out in the open. I thought about Emma sleeping peacefully in the next room, finally safe, finally healing. I thought about William's voice. You'll protect her, won't you, Maggie? I pressed post. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. I didn't check the responses. I didn't look at the notifications. I'd said what I needed to say. The truth was out there now. What people did with it was up to them. When I woke up the next morning, my phone had so many notifications that it had actually frozen. I had to restart it. But when it came back on and I finally opened Facebook, what I saw made my eyes fill with tears. My post had been shared over 2,000 times. The comments section had exploded, but this time they were on my side. Janet. Finally someone said it. Margaret is the bravest woman I know. Emma is lucky to have her. Mrs. Patterson. Oh my goodness, Margaret, I had no idea. I'm so sorry for doubting you. That poor child. David, my brother. This is my sister, the strongest, most loving grandmother in the world. Sophia should be ashamed of herself. Michael's co-worker, Tom. Man, I've been defending Sophia all week. I feel like an idiot. That post about Emma is sick. Emma's school friend's mom. Emma is such a sweet girl. I can't believe anyone would treat her this way. You're doing the right thing, Margaret. On and on it went. The tide had completely turned. People were sharing my post with comments like, "The real story," and "Everyone needs to see this." Sophia's post was now flooded with people calling her out. Her original comments section had turned into a battlefield, with people demanding she explain herself, asking how she could be so cruel to a child, telling her she should be ashamed. Within 3 hours, Sophia had deleted everything. Her post, her account profile picture, everything. She'd gone completely dark on social media. Patricia tried to fight back, posting something about 2 sides to every story. But she got ratioed so hard she deleted it within an hour. I received hundreds of messages from people. Some I knew, many I didn't, offering support, sharing their own stories of toxic step-parents, telling me I was doing the right thing. But the message that mattered most came from Michael. It was a text, short and simple. "Can I come over? We need to talk." He showed up that afternoon while Emma was at her friend's house for a play date. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red and puffy, his clothes wrinkled. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd signed the eviction notice. "I saw your post," he said quietly. I didn't respond. I just waited. I never saw that first post, the one Sophia made from the hospital. She must have deleted it before I saw it. He ran his hands through his hair. "Mom, I swear, if I'd known she said that about Emma, You what, Michael?" I asked, and my voice was harder than I intended. "You would have done what? Because you knew how she treated Emma. You saw it. And you did nothing." He flinched like I'd slapped him. I thought I could make it work. I thought if I just gave Sophia time, she'd warm up to Emma. I thought keeping the peace was the right thing. "There's no peace when one person is suffering in silence," I said. "Emma has been suffering for 3 years, Michael. And you chose Sophia over her, every single time." Tears started rolling down his cheeks. I know, and I hate myself for it. Mom, I was so scared of losing another wife. After Caroline died, I couldn't face being alone again, and Sophia made me feel alive. But I was so busy trying to make her happy that I forgot my first job is being Emma's dad. "So what are you going to do now?" I asked. "The eviction stands. Sophia has to be out in 23 days. What's your choice?" Michael looked up at me, his eyes full of pain, but also something else, determination. "I already made it. I told Sophia this morning that she needs to leave, and I'm not going with her." My heart jumped. "What?" "I'm staying," he said firmly. "In Cedar Falls, I mean. I'll find an apartment nearby. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going to fight for shared custody of Emma, if you'll let me. I know I don't deserve it. I know I've screwed up so badly. But I want to try to be the father she deserves. If it's not too late." I felt tears stinging my eyes. "It's not too late, Michael. It's never too late to do the right thing. But you need to prove it. Not to me, to Emma. You need to show her that she comes first." "I will," he promised. "I swear to you, Mom, I will." The final 23 days passed in a blur. Sophia moved out quietly. No drama, no final confrontation. She hired movers and was gone within a week, moving back to her mother's house in Des Moines. Michael found a small apartment on the other side of Cedar Falls. True to his word, he started showing up for Emma, really showing up. He came to her soccer games. He took her out for ice cream every Wednesday. He started family therapy with her, working through the hurt he'd caused. It wasn't perfect. Emma was cautious with him at first, guarded. But slowly, carefully, they started rebuilding. As for me and Emma, we thrived. We painted her room whatever color she wanted. She chose a beautiful lavender with white stars on the ceiling. We hung up all of Caroline's photos in the hallway, creating a gallery wall so Emma could see her mother's face every day. We cooked together, laughed together, and slowly but surely, the fear and sadness in Emma's eyes faded, replaced by the bright, joyful spark that had been missing for so long. 6 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, we were in the backyard raking leaves. Emma was jumping in the piles we made, laughing like the kid she should have been allowed to be all along. Michael stopped by with hot apple cider and cinnamon donuts from Janet's bakery. We all sat on the porch together, watching the golden leaves fall, and for the first time in years, it felt like family again. A different family than before, maybe smaller, maybe a little broken in places, but real, honest, full of love. Emma snuggled up next to me, her head on my shoulder. "Grandma?" "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for fighting for me." I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the apple-scented shampoo in her hair. Always, baby girl, always. That night, after everyone had gone home and Emma was asleep, I stood in the kitchen where this had all begun. I looked at the photo of William on the mantel, his kind eyes seeming to look right at me. "I kept my promise," I whispered to him. "Our girl is safe. She's loved, she's home. And I swear, in that quiet moment, I felt a warmth surround me, like William was there, telling me he was proud. Emma's house, our house, was finally filled with the thing it had been missing for so long: genuine, unconditional, protective love. The kind of love that doesn't back down, the kind of love that fights, the kind of love that wins. And we lived happily, truly happily, in the home William had made sure would always be Emma's safe place, with big smiles, full hearts, and a future full of nothing but love and healing ahead of us. The story you've just heard has had names and places changed to protect the identity of the people involved. We don't tell it to judge, but in the hope that someone will listen and stop to reflect. How many grandmothers suffer in silence watching their grandchildren being mistreated? I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you fight with everything you had to protect an innocent child? I want to know your opinion, because every story can be a light that guides others through their darkness. God bless, and I'm sure that courage and love will always lead us to better days. Thank you for staying with me until this moment. On the end screen, I'll leave 2 of the most beloved stories from our channel. I'm sure they'll move you just as much. Take care and remember, always fight for the ones who can't fight for themselves.